Enjoy this Wild Soul Gathering production. I'm Dr. Sandra Marie. Pour yourself a really tall glass of spiritual curiosity and join me for the Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious podcast. In the spirit of happy hour, cheers to some new insights, peace, revitalization, and perhaps an aha moment that may change your life. Welcome to the special edition of Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, and I am thrilled to introduce this special monthly segment, Intuitive Living, with my co-host, Katherine Troyer, owner of Home Slice Living. Katherine brings authentic, topsy-turvy stories and insights to help embrace intuitive living and transform your life. Get ready for some real, raw, and transformative conversations designed to inspire your own path of growth. Welcome, Katherine. How are you doing today?
I'm so great, Miss Sandra. How are you?
I am doing fine. I'm excited. It's January here on the East Coast, and it's a little cold, but other than that, I'm doing fine. There's something about hunkering in when it's cold that feeds my soul.
Same.
So we're going to talk today, I hope you're ready for this, about the 5 myths of intuitive living. I have my little card here, and I'm going to throw out the myths, and I'm going to have you give your thoughts on that myth and what you think about it. You ready for this?
Okay. Yeah, on the spot. This feels like a lightning round. I'm into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Intuition is a special gift only certain people have.
Oh, well, no, I don't think that's true at all. I think we all have intuition, but some of us are more tapped in to it than others. And I think that's also something that can come and go throughout our life if we're not being intentional about listening to ourselves.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely agree. Everyone has it. I think that we need to nurture it and trust it for it to really become more accessible.
Yeah, I think it's like creating a relationship.
Oh, I like that. Creating a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Because I kind of think of my intuition as yes, it's me, but it's like a part of me. So it's something that I can work in relationship with rather than just thinking it's just me. I almost see it as the separate entity of myself, but it's part of me. I don't know.
Oh, no, that's interesting. I like that. It's sort of like one of your little fractal parts of yourself that you can reach out with and have a conference if you become aware of it. Maybe. I don't know. That sounded weird.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. Because if we're just thinking that it's just us or just our brain or something, there's something about that because it's not this piece of us, or I like the way you called it, a fractal of us. But there's, we're obviously very connected to it, but I don't know, it just helps me to think about it as being something more than just my earthly self or something. So it's something I can have a relationship with.
That makes I think it is more than your earthly self. You ready for number 2? Intuition is always loud and obvious.
I would say no. I actually think that a lot of times it's the opposite from my experience, right? Sometimes when I think my intuition is loud, it's usually me ignoring my intuition and railroading it. And that's the loud part, is me ignoring it and being no, let's go this way instead.
Maybe that's your ego versus your intuition?
Yeah, maybe. I think, yeah, it could be for sure. Just no, I'm going to make this decision because it's what I want to believe, right? I'm going to ignore you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think that's one of the challenges, not the best word to use. That's one of the growths with intuition, is it's always just so subtle and whispery and nudging, and it is part of maybe what makes you not sure of it, but that could be just you're not trusting yourself either. I don't know. I think that I agree with you. It's just the opposite. I think it's more subtle.
Yeah, it's more peaceful, right? It's grounded. It's not this It's typically not this rush of emotion, but I'm not saying that it can't ever be a rush of intense feelings, because I think it can be that as well. There are moments where I've felt things intensely in my body and known, oh, it's time to go this way, right? But I think when it comes to kind of like an everyday tapping into the self, into the intuition, it's typically more subtle. It's the things that make you feel grounded, calm, peaceful, is kind of, I think, how you are trusting the right thing, right? It feels good to your nervous system. Just like finding a good mate. A good mate will make your nervous system feel really nice.
Okay. Following your intuition guarantees an easy path. That is a perfect response. That is a perfect response.
I'm just thinking also, Sandra, about the many conversations we've had over the last couple of years. Well, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I know it's what I'm supposed to be doing because it feels right. That's all I got,
Yeah.
you know?
I would say, though, sometimes following your intuition could be sort of uncomfortable sometimes.
Extremely uncomfortable.
Knowing it's the right thing to do, but knowing that it's not going to be so touchy-feely. And, the good part is there's usually a beautiful growth period afterwards, but in the moment, you're not thinking, oh, there's a beautiful growth period at the end of this.
No, because you're in the growth period and it's awful and it sucks and it's challenging. And you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now because my intuition is telling me to go this way, but nothing inside, like I've got nothing. I don't know where that's going to get me. I don't know why I'm doing it. I don't know. And I feel like there's a lot of I don't know when you really are like, okay, I'm going to allow myself to be led through this intuition. And it's terrifying
Oh, I know what you mean.
because you can't, like, it's a dark path and not dark like negative, but physically it's dark, right? Because you really are like, you cannot see oftentimes more than a foot in front of you. And you're just like, here I am, let's keep going.
No, that's spot on. It's 100% spot on. And I think that I'm going to say for us, it's a testament on some level of our trust and our growth with, this journey we've been on to connect with our higher consciousness. You're absolutely right. You and I have done some really out there things that like people do not understand. And honestly, it's hard to give an answer because you don't really understand it either. But you just know that's what you're supposed to be doing. And the path is dark and you're like, it's not even like, I hope this turns out well. It's like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know why, but I'm doing it and we'll see where this ends up.
Yeah, there's no plan. Your intuition doesn't come with a plan, right?
No.
There's no map for trusting your intuition. It's more like, well, if you just keep coming back to trust me, then everything will work out fine. And you're like, oh, well, what does work out fine mean? And it's like, I don't know. Just keep going. You'll find out. It's just this complete mystery. And I feel as though once you really commit to living like that, I don't know how you go back. It doesn't make sense a lot of times. It definitely, it doesn't make sense to you a lot of times, and you're the one making the decisions.
True. That's why it's so nice to have someone in your life you can have that conversation with, because there's not many you can.
Yes. There are not many that you can. And so it can be challenging, but it also is so magical right? Like when those things that you knew inside, just even when this little thing aligns, or you're taken out of that mundane kind of more pattern like way of thinking because, now you're like, oh, I got to go in and see how that feels. Right. And so there's just so much that shifts. And while there are some days where I definitely have those thoughts of like, wow, what would it be like if I would have never learned any of these things? You know?
Yeah.
But God, I couldn't imagine being any other way.
Yeah, I don't know that there is any turning back. I do want to go back. I think that you said something that's really important. Well, you said many things that are important, but one of the things that really struck me is the feeling. And that's part of I think the feelings are a reinforcement, even though you don't understand it, that it's right. And I know that I've said that many times with my current living situation. Like, I know it doesn't make any sense to anyone. All I know is I've never had this level of peace in my life. I mean, anyone, including myself. But all I know is I've never had this level of peace in my life. So that's the reinforcement that I think you're on the right path with the intuition. Oh, this is an interesting one. I think it just sort of flows right in there. Okay. Intuition and logic can't coexist.
Oh, this is such a good one for me too. The thought was they cannot coexist.
They say that's the myth. Intuition and logic cannot coexist.
This is a tough one because on one hand, I want to say that that's correct because trusting your intuition often leaves logic at the door because it doesn't make sense. However, I do feel that there, at some point in your journey, when it comes to following and trusting or letting your intuition lead you, there comes a point where you have a little bit of evidence that if I approach things in this manner, from this intuitive, in the flow manner, I eventually at some point have evidence that it works. And to me, evidence plays into me using logic when I'm making decisions. Because I also do believe that we are still human beings with mental minds and everything like that for a reason. We are given logic for a reason, but that only takes us so far. So to me, I do think there is this level where both can coexist and really work with each other in a beautiful, harmonious balance. I don't know that that is necessarily always easily achievable. I don't know. Maybe logic wouldn't be the right word. Maybe I'm looking more for the word wisdom, the wisdom that comes along that I don't know. I think there's some truth to it, but I do also believe that to sink deep into your intuition, you do kind of have to push logic aside. So what do you think about that? I'm so curious.
Well, it's interesting because I thought the same thing you did. I'm like, it's almost like if you were doing a true or false test, I would have said true and not false. But as I was listening to you talk, and I agree, we are in this human, earthly game that we're playing. Maybe it's that you can't be all one or all the other. Like all logic doesn't work. Well, all intuition does work, so that's not true. The more you talked, I was like, I could see where logic plays a role in it. So your intuition is driving it, but your logic might help you go through the different steps you need to achieve or something. Go for it.
Yeah, like bringing it to physical manifestation. The action, right, may come from logic or being able to create a formula to bring something to life. But I mean, you could pull that from your intuition though as well. And maybe maybe they're both sides of the same coin.
Ah,
And maybe the intuition is the spiritual expression, and the logic is more the ego expression. Because when we think about ego, right, like as humans, we can't fully live without it.
correct. It's not all bad.
It's not all bad. And so I don't know, maybe they're just different expressions of a similar thing. And again, too far one way, too far the other way, because there is that level of like, there is the living very, very intuitively, right? But there are times where we have to bring our logical mind into how we're living and how we're going about our day. And it could be something as like, we need to find the right bus with the right bus stop and da 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 da. We could do that just based on intuition. We could.
Yeah.
And it might work, but it might half work and we still have to use some logic to get home. I don't know. That's a really interesting thought. I'd be curious what our listeners think about that too. Like,
Yeah.
I'd be really curious.
Yeah. I'll be curious to read the comments in the chat on that. And I think that maybe we'll be revisiting that one. The last one. You have to be spiritual to be intuitive.
No, absolutely not. And what is spiritual anymore anyway? This is something you and I have talked quite a bit about. We don't have to go into those depths, but no, because I think we're inherently born with intuition.
Absolutely.
We're inherently born with it. And it doesn't matter what you classify yourself as, you still have it.
I would agree. It's clearly not attached to any belief system, but then that takes us back to like what is spiritual, and that could be a whole different show for a different day.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just tuning into your wisdom. Yeah. I don't know. How would you how would you define intuition?
Oh,
I feel like there's like some little innate energetic frequency antenna that's part of our being. I don't know.
Putting a definition. Yeah, I'm not sure how I would define it. It's just like this knowing, this peace that lives within you that you can like tap into, that like lets you know when things truly feel right. But to me, it's more of a feeling, right? Intuition doesn't necessarily give me the answers. It lets me know what feels right and what feels maybe not so good, or what makes me feel uncomfortable and what makes me feel very safe. Like, it's intuition, I don't think is just like this slew of like good feelings that take you somewhere, because intuition can also alert you to things that are not positive, and maybe that's why when we talk about trusting your intuition and how it's very dark, right? You can't see 2 feet in front of you. Well, that's because it's not about seeing something. It's about feeling it.
Good point. That's the hair on the back of my neck went up when I was in this situation. So I retreated. Something just didn't feel right. Yeah, I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I know, this has got my brain going. I love it.
There you go. Well, that's all I had was 5 myths for this one. I want to thank the listeners for taking time out of their day to join us. For more information about intuitive living, Wild Soul Gathering, and Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious podcast, you can go to our website, wildsoulsgathering.com.
And for all things home energetics, for the time being, you can go to homesliceliving.com to connect with me and all of the wonderful things there.
Nice. So remember, love loud,
live loud,
and trust that intuition. It's a process. Trust the journey. Till next time.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Wild Soul Gathering's Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. To learn more about our guests, please go to our website, wildsoulsgathering.com. We're very eager to hear from our listeners what you thought of the episode, topics you might like us to cover in the future, your thoughts on spirituality, questions you may have. Please feel free to send us an email at wildsoulsgathering@gmail.com. This is your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, sending each of you peace and love. Until we meet again, embrace your wild soul.